Hey guys, Introspection here. So as you guys know, I was trying to do an interview with the Yoda guy. Unfortunately, everything kept going wrong. The internet kept cutting out, the programs I had to record the audio just would not work properly. So what we decided to do is I'm going to post the parts of the interview I was able to actually get in this video, and we're going to have a live stream Wednesday at 3. So hopefully if I wasn't able to get into your question in this video, which honestly was probably most of them, then hopefully we can answer it during the live stream. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video. I did my best to try to salvage the audio from the actual interview, but I gotta warn you, a lot of it didn't come out great. I'm going to do my best to make it at least distinguishable, but even though it's not great, I still encourage you to actually watch the video, because even though the audio is really not the best, it's still amazing what it's like to listen to him. He's got a lot of very interesting ideologies and philosophies that went into his actual road to getting to this point where he was one of the people who actually worked on Star Wars and was responsible for making Yoda who he is today. So it's just really interesting to listen to it. Again, I'm sorry for the audio, but I still hope you can enjoy it.
When you are young, you get to be about 13, 14 years old, and people say to you, well, you've got to make up your mind what you're going to do in life. But the problem is you've got absolutely zero experience of life, so you haven't got a clue what you're going to do with the rest of life, and you have absolutely no experience on which to make that decision. So people tend to want to encourage you to go ways that they think through their life experience has proven to to be best for them, they're all normal people living normal lives, and so what they're going to recommend to you is something that fits within that framework. As I say in my little book, Big Ideas, you can't live an extraordinary life by being normal. People don't think about it that way, but normal people just follow normal paths. All your heroes, all the people that you look up to are people who did something else. And so those people who are trying to give you a safe start in life, those people who are saying to you, oh, well, okay, you've got this fancy idea, but you need a backup plan. What they're doing is they're preparing you for your main plan to fail. So you're starting right at the beginning by accepting the fact that what you're starting to do isn't going to work out. And so I know this doesn't sound like I'm immediately answering your question, but it's a critical element to understand when you are at that stage where you're trying to find a way in life. For me, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't, I was a new kid on the planet, going through school like everybody else. I had the advantage and disadvantage of being, in a theatrical family. So my dad was an actor. My mother was a bookkeeper. She was the one that was very practical and sensible and rather negative. My dad was the one who was very imaginative and helped me writing poems when I was 5 years old. So I did understand that it was possible to live outside the normal, the normal block. But I also understood from very early on what it was to be an unemployed actor. And, I grew up partly in the theater and saw all of the ways that those people were not actually making a living, or how they would get to be old and talk about how they were almost a star, or they were Greta Garbo's stand-in, or whatever it was. And so I was also had this thing in my mind that I didn't necessarily want to struggle in that same way. I used to do all the school plays, and because I had a theatrical background, I learned how to build the props and how to do my makeup when I was 7 years old, and so I acquired those skills. Now later on, when I got to the point where I first of all, I should say, I wasn't a good student. I had I had learning disabilities and being partially dyslexic, and now I realize I had attention deficit, which to some extent I still have. Um, but so when I was at school, they didn't think I was particularly bright either, and so they decided I was going to work in a factory and try to encourage me to be a sensible boy and learn metalwork and woodwork so I could go work in a factory. And if I'd accepted that, that's what I would have done. The first biggest lesson that you have to learn is not to throw away those big dreams that you have, because if you don't pursue them, well, they're just not going to happen. In my book, I say, if you don't invest in your impossible dream, you're the one who guarantees that dream won't come true. And so you have to work at these things that when you start out seem completely unlikely that you will ever be able to realize. You don't have the facility, you don't know the people, you're areas to get a leg up, but you've got to do it anyway, because you have to learn those skills, and then you need to stalk the people who can help you, and until you get to a point where that starts to work out. I have a good friend who was the line producer on Star Wars and on Indiana Jones. And when I said to him, what advice would you give to young people? He said, you have to have the passion. And he's right, because it is a difficult uphill climb. But it's passion for what you love to do that will help you put in the effort to make that happen. Okay. Are you still there, or am I talking to myself?
No, I'm still here. So, going back to when you said that maybe doing a backup plan, the whole thought process of the backup plan and the guarantee, I think that was a very good... I think that was just a very good explanation, in my opinion, of Yoda's famous line, do or do not, there is no try. I think if I understand the mentality of that saying correctly, it's essentially, in essence, what you explained, that you need to completely dedicate yourself to whatever it is that you're extremely passionate about. In your case, it was artwork. Would you say that that is a good not comparison, but maybe connection to that say? At least that's the connection that I kind of drew.
To your question, and I don't know if you got any of it at all.
I got to the point where you concluded telling us about how your friend who worked on Indiana Jones was giving you some advice, but then after that I got cut off.
Uh-huh. Well, I can pick it up from there if you like. It probably won't be the same, but nothing in life is the same.
Well, I mean, to be optimistic, that gives the potential for it to be... It doesn't necessarily need to be different in a bad way. For all we know, optimistically, it could be... I mean, I'm sure whatever you say will be amazing, but optimistically, sure. Perhaps It could be better.
Yeah, sure. Let's try and pick it up from there, and let's hope I don't just repeat something that I said before. Are you recording?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay. So here I go. Yeah, I have a good friend, the producer of line producer for the original Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and I did a thing with him for the museum where I was making holograms. And I asked him what advice he would give young people. And he said it came down to one word, and that was passion. Because if you have a passion for something, you put in the effort to make it work, whatever it is. You get through that concept of, oh, I go to work, I work for 8 hours, and then I come home and have some time with my family or enjoy myself. Well, the truth of the matter is, when you love what you do, when it comes to time to leave, you actually don't want to get up and leave. You would say, "Oh, do I have to go now? I'm just in the middle of something, right?" And the more effort that you put in to make something work, that's what makes you different. That's what makes you extraordinary. That's what separates you from those other normal people.
Okay, so one thing I did mention, I think right after you got cut off, I don't know how much of this you heard from me, was that not analogy, but the thing that you were saying about how one must be fully committed to a passion that they want to do and not just simply have a backup to, or how people were convincing you to try to do a safer job just in case. To me, I seem to relate that, if I understand the expression correctly, Yoda's famous words, do or do not, there is no try, with the ideology that you have to be fully committed for you to have the best possible chance of succeeding at that thing.
Well, actually, yeah, that's in my book as well. I relate to the fact that Luke says, "I don't believe it," and Yoda says, "That is why you fail." It's true. If you don't, another section in my book says, if you can't achieve what you don't believe. It's a really simple little phrase. You've got to believe in yourself, and you've got to believe that if you keep going and if you keep making the effort, somewhere along the way, you'll make it happen. The reason people succeed isn't because they were sitting in their living room and someone knocked on the door and said, "Oh, would you like to be a movie star?" Or knocked on the door and said, "Oh, would you like to come and work in movies?" It just doesn't happen that way. It's because you made the effort and you kept banging on doors, and when they tell you to go away, you have to keep on knocking on the door until they're sick of hearing you knocking on the door. And then they say, "Oh, for God's sake, come in." That's how you succeed at these things. It's not, I can't tell you, "Oh, it's a simple path." You go from A to B and you walk in a straight line. You don't walk in a straight line. You have to be like the river that flows from being a little spring down to joining the sea. And that little spring turns into a stream as you gain more and more experience. And that stream turns into a river and manages to push the small boulders of obstacles out of the way. When it reaches a mountain, it doesn't try to move the mountain, and it doesn't stop and say, "Oh, there's a mountain, I'm going to give up." It goes off to the left or it goes off to the right, and it finds a new route around the problem to flow down to the sea. But whatever happens, it eventually gets to the sea.
As you can see, I'm a bit of a loss for words, because that was it's extremely true. The ideology that you have to continue on, but you have to adapt to whatever path or obstacle must be or is placed in your way.
Yeah, many years ago, I was invited to my first Star Wars celebration, um, and I met up with my old colleague, Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca. In fact, myself and the production supervisor on a movie called Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger recommended Peter to play Chewbacca. He was a hospital porter at the time. You understand what I'm saying there? He was a hospital porter and he got to be a movie star and spend his life going to conventions and signing autographs. It's There are little connections in life that lead you to big connections. And so you have to give 120% to all those little connections. Don't say, "Oh gosh, yeah, someone wants me to do this, but it's a lot of effort, and then, I might not gain anything out of it." Don't put everything in financial terms, because money does fuel life, but you only need enough fuel to get where you're trying to go. And if you just keep collecting fuel, well, then you become a gas station, and that's not necessarily what you wanted to do when you started out wanting to fill your car so you could get to somewhere else. You can see. I know this isn't quite what you expected when you asked this question, but um, I do motivational talks as well, and the critical thing there is that I didn't start out with a philosophy. My philosophy was formed by looking back at the things that I did and the experiences that I had, and trying to analyze what it was that actually made me a success where someone else maybe failed. And I went through about 13, it was 13 years from the time I was 13 years old. My teacher told me I was an idiot going to work in a factory and I should get rid of all these fancy ideas. And it was another 13 years to the time that joined the creature crew for the first Star Wars movie, and we built the creatures or the UK creatures for Mos Eisley. It was not a short walk in the park. If you're going to try to achieve something, expect it to be hard. If you expect it to be hard, maybe it'll be easier than you expect. If you expect it to be easy, you're just going to give up before you've even got started.
Right, and that's absolutely true. But and I think one of the things is that people will get really motivated, and then when they'll like lose motivation, particularly when they hit a major bump. But like you said,
Yeah,
when you
exactly.
prepare for that kind of thing, when you prepare for that large hurdle, mentally speaking, then you're a lot more capable of overcoming it.
Well, let me explain a little bit more of the background to what I'm saying here. As I say, I was a kid from theatrical families, so I understood that you didn't have to live it, the same way. But we were so poor that we lived in subsidized housing, what you would probably call the projects. And so everyone said, "Yeah, you've got this crazy pipe dream. It's never going to amount to anything." I had a girlfriend whose family thought I was a complete flake, and sent her off to boarding school to try and get rid of me, and all of those things. You just face one obstacle after another. I didn't really want to go to work because I didn't want to work in that factory. I went on and did like a vocational college. Because I hadn't been good at school, and I really only started to apply myself when I was about 13, and try to overcome these educational learning difficulties that I had. So I went on, and a lot of the exams that I passed by chance happened to be mathematical. I don't really understand why, but maybe because my mum was a bookkeeper, and when I was 11 and the school holidays, I'd go to work with her and start to do, writing ledgers and various things for a bit of extra pocket money. But um, she probably only did that because she was afraid of what I'd get up to if she left me at home. But that's something else. We, the critical thing though was that when I did come out of college, I needed to pay the bills like everybody needs to pay the bills. I didn't have to work in a factory because I'd worked harder to get beyond that. But people would put me in an office, and that was equally boring. I guess I was a dreamer, and I was still a dreamer, and people thought that I was that guy who maybe wasn't gonna achieve a lot, who just kind of um, was a bit strange. I say now, don't worry if you're different to everybody else, because the people who change the world are the people who are different, not the people who are the same. And, the weird guy who sits in the corner is the one who gets to invent Apple and Microsoft, not the leader of the football team, or the most popular girl in school. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew what I didn't want to do. And so I basically ruled out those things and pursued everything else to see what opportunities, what revenue, what lines of revenue might open up that would give me, the walk in a direction that I wanted to. Think about that stream again that I said, stream's a little bit of water that comes out of the ground. That's what you are when you start out, and you find your way around those little pebbles in order to form into a stream, to gain enough momentum along the way. And so I just grabbed every opportunity that came along, and that's another thing that's in my book, where I say, you have to make the most of every opportunity, even if you don't know where it's going to take you, and you don't know whether it's going to lead you to this place that you have set in your mind. I had another friend. He became a production manager and a line producer on movies, but he started by ironing shirts in the wardrobe department because he met a guy from wardrobe first. You have to look at every connection and see how that just edges you a little bit closer to the subject matter of where you want to go. And I also say, offer to work for nothing. If you can't get in, if they won't offer you a job, say, I'll just be there and make the tea. I'll work for nothing, because it's much better to learn from a cutting edge person than to pay to go to school, go to college, and work for 3 years for nothing, and end up with a big bill to start your life with, and be taught by the trailing edge people who aren't actually doing the job. So, these are life lessons. These are things that I was able to see when I had the perspective of being later in life and looking back. A lot of young people would come and find me in my art gallery in the Caribbean, and they would ask me all these questions. And it was only by answering those so many times that I began to realize that I was giving the same answer. I began to realize that actually I had a philosophy, something that had formed itself over a period of time. And that's what's in my book. You mentioned Yoda's do or do not. The book's actually called The Do or Do Not Outlook. And it's 77 steps on edging your way towards what you want to do in life, whatever that might be.
Now, um, I know I'm gonna. If it's okay with you, I want you to send me a link to where people can purchase the books, because I know that a lot of people who hearing about this book, are probably gonna want to pick it up. Would that be okay with you?
Sure, I will happily do that. But what I'm also going to do between now and my next online event, I don't know, you picked up on our online event yesterday, did you?
Um,
Did you see that?
I saw the email that you sent me, telling me about the online event where you, along with several other people, I believe the autograph. I believe I read that
Yeah,
the
there's a lot
autograph
of
is.
stuff. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, we did it yesterday. It was an 8-hour marathon. It was a really it was very well received. The guys said some great stuff. We had people from Making Mandalorian. We had people from uh, the world of autographs that were talking about how you authenticate autographs and what to watch out for in terms of picking up, some of the garbage that that people try to sell you on eBay. I'm not saying eBay does that, but there's lots of people that are trying to con you out of money. Um, and we had a panel about Mos Eisley and the history of that, and about the wardrobe designer that made so many of these Star Wars costumes and various things. It was a really good event. People will still be able to subscribe for that. I'm gonna put a link up for that shortly. That the recording for that is sitting online, and anybody who wants to make a $6 donation to the Follow Your Star Foundation, help us keep going and encourage other young people, can access that 8 hours and watch those panels down the line. In another 2 weeks, we're going to do a another event. It'll probably be a bit shorter, um, which is all about cosplay and about building costumes and various other things. And that's how we're trying to keep going. So I'll send you each of those links as we can. But between the two, probably next weekend, but maybe before, I'm going to do a free broadcast, which is specifically motivational about people following their dreams. And on that, I will also be giving a link to how to get the book. I just did a deal with my publisher where the publisher will send the books out direct from the USA instead of them having to come from me here in the Caribbean. You can buy them through Amazon, but actually our foundation makes much more money when you buy them from us direct, and we get the publisher to ship them out. And so that's going to be coming up in the next couple of days.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say this to inform our viewers. All of the links that he mentioned and are sent to me, I will put in the description. If they are not to me at the immediate time the video is posted, I'll be sure to. So that's gonna be coming up in the next couple of days. Okay, so I'm just gonna say this to inform our viewers. All of the links that he mentioned and are sent to me, I will put in the description. If they are not to me at the immediate time the video is posted, I'll be sure to update the description as he sends them to me. So I'll have, if they're not all with me by the time I upload the video, they will be in the future. So if you're looking out for any of the things that he mentioned, just know that just come back and check the video. I'll also be posting a reminder when he does the podcast. So if you can let me know when the podcast is, because I'm of course honestly also interested in that. So when he sends me that, I'll make sure to make a post on my social medias to let everybody on my social media know that you're doing the podcast as well. Yeah, it'll be a webcast, so it won't just be sound. Okay. But we the critical thing with it, I think, is I don't know what everyone's situation is. Some people may have online schooling that they have to do at the time when when something like this comes up. But right after we go live with it, the recording will automatically load into the same link. So they are actually able. They won't be able to ask questions, but they are able to watch the same thing at 11 o'clock at night, or leave it to the weekend, or whenever. All right, and I'm sure that anybody watching this is probably going to show quite a bit of interest in at least one of, if not all of those things. So with that said, I wanna ask you another question about your work. Okay, so my next question is: when you were working on not just Star Wars, but all of the movies that you generally worked on, what were like some of the things that when you were new you were expecting to be a major challenge, but then when you came in you realized it wasn't anywhere near as much of a problem that you originally thought? I don't think that really ever happened. I think it was maybe the other way around, where
you have an optimistic view of what it is that you're going to deal with, and then one problem after another gets in your way. You know, the thing that people are measured by in the final analysis is not how many times they got knocked down, but how many times they picked themselves up again. And you know, when I tried to get into movies, I was just faced with one negative barrage after another. People around me who said you'll never make that work. People who said, "Oh, you'll never connect with those people." When I did connect with those people, you know, getting letters that told me, "Oh, we've got your information on file. You know, we'll let you know if we need anybody." You know, that's just someone saying, "Please go away." And it's really you how you don't go away, how you keep going against all these stages of adversity. And someone else would say, "Well, how do you keep going if you've already reached that point where you've asked somebody and they've said, 'Oh yes, we've got you on file. Please, you know, don't write again,'" which is really what they're doing. What I did in that case, you know, you don't just research how to do the job. You research how the job is done, how it comes to, how, by that I mean how it's organized. And so, you know, I needed to get a union ticket in order to make movies. I researched the Bronx. I researched who were the people, and eventually I found a link. And remember, at this point in time, there was no internet. So you're doing everything either on the telephone or by reading a book or by talking to somebody face to face. Eventually, I found out where they held their union meeting. And I showed up to every union meeting for 2 years until, and of course, they made me stand outside. I wasn't allowed in. But until they knew I wasn't going to go away. And that sounds like a huge amount of effort. But they had a meeting once a month. And if what you do is you take that 4-hour effort and you multiply it by 12 months a year, that's 4 hours 24 times. That's not even 2 weeks' work. Most people just reach that block and they say, "Well, I tried. Now I'm going to go and do what everybody's been telling me I ought to do, get a proper job." Well, you know, follow your passion. If you have a passion, it's the passion that helps you overcome the negativity. It's the passion that helps you really put in more effort than the guy who's sitting next to you. And because you put in more effort, you get the next job because you're making more effort on this job. And that's why I say, you know, look at every little job as though it might lead you to a bigger job. I really only got Star Wars because I helped my friend with a little beer commercial where he was doing prosthetics, and I helped him with it, and then he persuaded his dad to include me on the for the Creatures from Mos Eisley. You know, little things lead to bigger things.
Okay, I'm sorry. I that was just a lot. So I need a moment. I just needed a moment to absorb everything. But yeah, you're completely right. So let me ask you, when you were doing that and you were researching, um, sorry, I'm just having a bit of a hard time collecting my thoughts. But when you were a little bit, but I'm still extremely grateful to hear the answer that you did give me. But with that said, I was originally asking for a more of a I was just personally curious from a more technical standpoint when you were actually in the profession, like when you were doing the aesthetics and the technology. What were some of the things?
Principle is you sit down and you say, "Oh, I know how to do this. It's going to be X, Y, and Z," and then you can't get the materials, or something else happens, or you get distracted. You've got to go and do another job, and you thought this was something you could do in 3 days, and in 3 days you've been working on something else and it didn't get done. It's all about problem solving. It's all about overcoming the obstacles that get put in your way. It's very rare that I can honestly say, "Oh, this is going to be difficult," and then it turns out to be easy. Because the reason you think it's difficult is because of the technical elements that you put together in your mind that you know you have to do in order to help you one. So those are never going to get. You know what happens is you visualize it in your mind, but you can't visualize the problems that will come up while you're on your way. The fact that you did something, you sculpted something, you sculpted in water clay, because that's what we had to do in those days when foam latex didn't like things that were modeled in oil-based clays. And then you got distracted by an emergency. When you come back, everything's dried out and cracked up, and you've got to start again. You couldn't visualize that those things were going to come up. Success is all about how you handle your failures. Success is all about how you deal with the emergencies that come up along the way.
Yeah, and I forget where, but I'm actually a big fan of the TV shows that came off of Star Wars, and I believe once or twice, the characters will actually mention that you'll often learn more from your failures than your successes.
Well, you don't learn anything from a success because things went the way you planned, and they're based on what you knew before. You only learn from the failure. And that's why, again, in my book, I actually, I started out when I was writing this book, I would use the word failure a lot. And then I realized that I needed to change that. I talk about setbacks. I went right through the book and took out the word failure and put in the word setback. Because you've only failed when you've given up.
Right. I mean, there's that famous saying, I think it was Thomas Edison, if I remember correctly, said when he was trying to make the light bulb, right? He said, "When I made 10,000 light bulbs that don't work, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just found 10,000 ways to make it not work."
Or creators, when they look at something and think it's perfect, to say, "Wow, look at that, I did such a great job," because you didn't learn anything from it. The next job has to be a development based upon the last job. And so if you want to be the best in the business, if you want to be, or even just be considered in that higher echelon, you have to keep on moving forward. You can't stay ahead of the competition if you don't keep moving forward. And so, don't do something and say, "I like that," and rest on your laurels. That's actually a very negative thing, because you put in an exercise and you didn't progress from it. You learn things along the way caused by things that didn't work, and you need to be able to look at what you're doing without putting yourself down, but look at it in a way to say, "Well, I could have improved that, and I could have improved that, and gosh, that could have been better." The people who are looking at your work, they don't see those things because they don't know what was in your mind, what you were trying to achieve in the first place. Whatever you actually achieve is usually only 70 or 80% of what you're aiming for. So you have to look at that and build on that. I had a guy one time who was talking about building like a crocodile, and I had a guy who was working with me said, "Oh, I can do that. I've done it before." I said, "What did you do before?" He said, "Well, we built it, we sculpted it, we made it polyurethane, and a diver went inside, and we had a little mechanism to open the door and go snap, snap." I said, "What are we going to do this time?" He said, "Well, do the same thing." Well, then you didn't progress. You've got to make sure that when you do it a second time, it's better than what you did the first time. And so it is, I know this is ending up being a discussion about philosophy of life, but and it's not necessarily as direct the answers that you were anticipating. But it all comes down to the same thing. That's how you achieve things. You achieve things through that basic principle of not giving up when things go wrong, and finding ways around a problem, often by the seat of your pants.
I mean, yeah, you're completely right. And even though it's not as direct as I had originally intended, I still certainly very much appreciate your philosophy, especially since my channel is philosophy as much as it is information. So, and you're giving amazing advice. So by no means do I want you to discontinue. So yeah, I still really appreciate the philosophical advice that you continue to give. And I can already think of like 5 people right now that are probably going to lose their minds listening to you talk about this, because when they think about a lot of their heroes, and I know that you weren't exactly the person on screen, but to a lot of the people I personally know, and I'm sure a lot of other people I don't and are still watching this video, people who made Yoda, like yourself, are more or less their heroes. And to hear your hero talk in a way that really confirms that they're the kind of person they imagined you to be, like they hear you talk like this and they're like, man, the dude who made Yoda is as wise as Yoda. That's actually extremely amazing for fans of Yoda. And to be totally honest with you, you're among their heroes, and I'm sure that listening to this kind of thing will only amplify that further.
On our side, my wife was just telling us that eventually ended up. So I think that's what happened. Our internet, we're in the Caribbean, and so mainland your side.
Right. Well, no worries, because thankfully I was able to get you back. So just so I know, what was the last thing you heard from me?
What was the last thing you heard from me? You asked a question and I gave an answer, and I don't know how much of it you got.
The last thing I heard from you was that I know that this is more philosophical and not as direct as you were expecting. And then I can't remember exactly what you said, but you briefly continued on to explain the importance of the philosophy that you were sharing, and then I was responding to that, none of which I'm assuming you heard.
No, that's okay. Don't worry. I mean, as long as you got my answer, you'll be fine, right?
Right. So let me ask you. Let me just pull up the question sheet again. Okay, so here's another question that I wanted to ask you. As an artist, do you ever experience, because I know a lot of other artists have a problem with this, do you ever experience writer's block, or I guess in your case, sculptor's block, or artistic block?
I often, when I started out, I imagined that I would, but no, I don't. Yeah, writer's block. I'm in the process of writing a novel with my wife right now. We've been doing it for some time, and there's always other things that get in the way. Sometimes you have a bit of a block about how you're going to write down a visualization of something. Not so much a block where you sit there and say, what the hell am I going to write now? I've never really had that. I form a vision, first of all, in my head of what it is that I will sit on. I start on that, whether it's a sculpture or whether it's a piece of writing. I then reach a point where it's beginning to shape up, and maybe it's not shaping up quite as well as I'd hoped, so I add other things and take certain things out. But like being a painter, I'm that as well. So as an artist, you add some colours and then go, oh, I don't know, that's not quite what I thought it should be. Let me adjust that. And then sometimes it will just take on a life of its own, and it goes off in another direction. I wrote a storyline originally for a holographic stage show, which was a new medium that we never got off the ground. And then afterwards I thought, oh well, let's write that up as a movie script, which we did. And then I said, well, let's write the book. And we started on the book, but actually the book expanded, like the expanded universe. It went off in all kinds of other areas because new thoughts occurred to me of some of the characters that led me to new scenes, that led me to new characters, that led me to other things. It's about following your imagination, whether that imagination is doing something creative like sculpting something, or whether that imagination is just taking you on a path towards a career that you want, or that imagination is taking you in a direction, a technical direction to make something. You're creating things. Creativity isn't just about sculpting and writing. Creativity is about writing code and about thinking outside the box to create something that other people are not doing. That's one of the problems with having a teacher or a mentor, that if you follow exactly what your teacher and your mentor is telling you, then you're never going to develop something beyond what is considered to be standard enough to be taught. And really, if you want to be the best at something, you've got to keep on breaking your bounds.
So you keep giving these amazing answers, and I really have no idea how to respond to them. So you're gonna have to excuse my moments of silence, because it's just answers that are way more profound than I think I keep mentally preparing for. So I occasionally will need the moment to process it and form a proper response.
That another piece of philosophy that in life, it's those things that you meet that you didn't expect that lead you on to something that is far greater than you originally set out upon, and that is so if you just so it's been really nice talking to all your people here, and I'm hoping that those folks will come and join us on Wednesday at 3 o'clock. I'm going to send you the link shortly. And I want everyone to remember, they should hear nothing, but listen to all.
All right, bye everybody. Thank you very much, sir.